Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your wonderful response and lots of best wishes. This gives me lots of energy to do more and more great work. I started this podcast mainly for the purpose of making you all aware about the latest developments in the area of health, education, and lifestyle. So, in this context, today we are going to discuss about longevity. We all want to live more, but living more is not a big achievement if we are not healthy. So we want health. Along with that, we want to live happily our entire life. Do you all know that there are some set of people working in the area of longevity? We have a great expert in this area in today's podcast, that is Dr. Ash Kapoor. So I'm honored to have him in this podcast, who is working on human optimization and guiding many people like us to live long in a healthier manner. So please listen to this podcast to know how to live healthily and happily till we are there on this earth. And I request you all to listen this episode till the end, like it, comment it, and share it with your near and dear. So on this positive note, I want to start this podcast. Dr. Ash Kapoor, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and sparing your valuable time. Uh, Dr. Ash Kapoor, kindly introduce yourself to my audience.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh, for such a nice introduction. So, my name is Ash Kapoor. I've been a clinician for nearly 35 years now. And the last 10 years of this has been dedicated to the science of longevity. 10 years ago, of course, it wasn't known as longevity. It was known as root cause analysis, which technically means looking at the root source of disease, decline, and disorder. So we dedicated our practice, our work to finding out if we could find a common denominator for all diseases. And in fact, the work has led to us understanding that almost every disease comes from a process that is only 12 or 13 things, and they call the 12 hallmarks of aging. These are the 12 things that go wrong at the root of anything that cause all diseases. So where is the root? Well, the root is the DNA. The DNA is your blueprint from which everything is grown. And effectively, all your cells work to an instruction manual known as your DNA. So we look at the journey between that instruction manual and the creation of the cell. The logic being, if you get that journey right, then the cells that become tissues and the tissues that become organs will look after themselves. And so essentially, that is the work we're doing. The important thing to remember here is that we have to define what longevity is. As you alluded to, it's not about adding years to our life, it's about adding health to those years. So in our definition of longevity, it is you have to be independent, you have to be purposeful, there should be a reason for you to wake up in the morning, and you should be in pursuit of fulfillment. That is, you sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. If you have all those three things, then you are optimal. If you have any of those things missing, then you are leading a suboptimal life. And technically, therefore, by definition, not at your best. And this definition applies to all ages. We have to look for independence, purpose, and pursuit of fulfillment. So having defined what longevity is, then the next thing to define is how long can this be? There's no point pursuing additional life without knowing where your endpoint could be. And genomic studies have shown that in today's day and age, that endpoint is 123 years. So for us, our goal and our aspiration is to live till 123 with purpose, fulfillment, and independence. So having created the aspiration, we then do the work as to find out why. Why are we not all living to that age? And therefore, why are we all suboptimal? Everybody in the human race who's not achieving this is by definition suboptimal. The issue is, the current model of conventional medicine is very much aligned to finding a diagnosis, making a label, and usually that involves a test. And once you've made that label, you then have a treatment for that label. So it's very much looking at the end of the organ, the expression of disorder, blood pressure, raised cholesterol, headache. All of these things are expressions. So the medical model has never dug to the root cause. They've just looked at the expression. And then a whole load of pharmaceutical interventions can occur to suppress that convention. So if a doctor picks up a raised cholesterol in you, for example, Dr. Rajesh, they'll give you a statin because they will say that the statin will drop your cholesterol and it will prevent heart disease. But no one's looked and said, well, why is the cholesterol raised? What is going on at the cellular level to cause that to happen? So we do that. We look at that for all diseases. And what is fascinating, the more we've looked, the more simpler the position has got. And we've now defined literally all illness as a process of decline called inflammation. So every disease is inflammation. And if we can therefore mitigate inflammation, we can then mitigate disease. So the example I gave you of raised cholesterol, cholesterol can go up when your body's producing a lot of the wrong fat. Why is it producing the wrong fat? Because it's in a state of distress, not in disease. And the commonest cause of distress in this modern day is our brain. We are no longer physical beings. We are no longer being chased by saber-toothed tigers or finding food, water, shelter. We are chasing exams. We're chasing good jobs. We're chasing deadlines. We're chasing board meetings. All of these things are registered in our brain as a source of stress. And the brain will then tell the body, you're stressed today. And the body does not know how to react to these modern stresses because it's grown up in the wilderness for 5 million years. It only understands physical stress. So what it will do, it will prepare you to run away. Your adrenal gland will make a steroid called cortisol, and this cortisol will make sugar. It will make adrenaline. It will make all these hormones so you can run. Now, of course, you're not running anywhere looking at an email on your desk. So this excess sugar converts into fat. So you become a jalebi-making factory when you're stressed. It's not about what you're putting in, it's what you're making. And this stress itself, with the extra sugar that's going nowhere because you're running nowhere, converts into fat. We've chased the fat. We haven't chased the process that's caused it. If we were to chase the process that caused it, then we would not only remove inflammation for that one manifestation, we would remove it for all manifestations. So by taking a statin, we make ourselves feel good that our cholesterol's down. But the process that caused that has not gone down. It'll erupt later as diabetes, as headache, as dementia, as chronic fatigue, as autoimmune disease. So we are chasing an expression, and with this we've created 126,000 diseases, which means we've created 126,000 expressions, treatments, without looking at the root cause. So effectively, to live longer, you've got to always look at root cause. You have to define what longer means, which we have, and then look at root cause. And here at my clinic, the last 10 years, we've dedicated our lives to put this research into application, and that is what we do. And we can talk a little bit about that. So we've now defined what longevity is. So if you're 70 and you've got joint pain, you should not accept it. You can say, I've still got 50 years here. Let me find out what's going on. But instead, we just accumulate more and more medication, suppress, and then we just crash. So it's a very different way of thinking. What is also interesting, Dr. Rajesh, in this research is that we found that the majority of solutions have existed in our primordial civilizations. Because we came from nature, our predecessors who've lived there for millions of years have adapted to nature. So all the solutions are there in nature, not in nurture. Unfortunately, now we live in metropoles. We're putting significant amount of invisible toxins in our system. We're overloading the distress. Food is no longer nutrition because the soil has been manipulated. So not only are we not protecting ourselves properly, we're not even feeding ourselves properly. So we're buying years, not life.
Yeah, we are buying years but not life. That is really awesome, Dr. Ash Kapoor. So I wanted to know what motivated you to enter into this fascinating field of longevity.
So I've always been a workaholic. There's no, I cannot hide from that. When I went into medicine, I worked 7 days a week. I was exposed to out of hours work, casualty work, general practice work. So I was fortunate enough that I was able to see almost all fields of medicine. And I loved it, and overseeing millions of people, you form patterns in your head. You form pattern recognition. But I was also lucky enough to look after my own patient list size of 2,500 patients at that point. So I could see a model of continuity. These days, you see many specialists. The specialists will only look at their area, but no one puts the picture together. No one connects everything. I was lucky enough in the world I was in, I could connect everything together and therefore understand patterns. But what was frightening is that the interventions I was putting in, giving more medication, doing more tests, in the short term produce qualitative goals, i.e. I managed to get these parameters down. But in the long term, when I saw my patients in the local hospital, which I looked after, I found that the same functional people in their 50s, when they got to their 80s, were disabled, demented with not good cognitive function, and immobile. And they were all in the majority signing forms saying, if I arrested, please do not resuscitate. So that made me think, what have we achieved there? And then it made me look at other cultures. I looked at the Aborigine tribes, the Maasai tribes, the indigenous population. And you still had 80-year-olds able to squat, smiles on their faces, had full set of teeth. And I thought, despite this modern world where these guys are on 25, 30 drugs, we've achieved very little. And so it made me reevaluate what we were doing a decade ago. And I opened up the Levitas clinics and started to look at root cause analysis, which is now coined as longevity. So we never went into longevity, we just went into root cause analysis. And now, of course, it's developed. And now we have almost 200 standard operating procedures that we can apply to any individual. So it was the lack of ability to produce that quality that made me want to reevaluate what I was doing.
So, Dr. Ash Kapoor, you established the Levitas Group. You are the founder of that group. So,
Yes.
what is the core vision of that group?
The core vision of that group is to produce an environment for an individual where they are joyful, they are interested, they are wanting to no longer look at their chronological age and just be in the present and do. Open businesses up at 80 or 90. Connect with humans at every level. Not look at their age and use that as a label or a reason for decline. So we want to maintain purpose, independence, and the pursuit of fulfillment.
So, that's really awesome, Dr. Ash Kapoor. I wanted to know what are the three key pillars of health span? If you define three key pillars of health span, what do you say about them?
Yeah. So for me, if you look in the longevity world now, and I know Brian Johnson has recently visited India, and in fact, I was talking at the same conference he was last week in London. If you look at longevity, there are so many things people can do: vitamins, supplements, cryo, plunging, breath work, infrared saunas. It is getting very complex, this matrix, and people are just jumping from A to B to C to D. And sadly, they're getting disappointed because whatever they do is not sustainable. So for me, there is no wrong intervention. It's timed wrongly. And if you put the wrong timing to these interventions, you will not get a result. So for me, the pillars of strategy for longevity is, first of all, restore your infrastructure, restoration. Your body is like a city. It has roads and airports and train tracks. If the infrastructure is broken, it doesn't matter what the commodity is. It could be the most beautiful mangoes. It could be the most beautiful Lamborghini. But if it cannot get from A to B, it's of no value. So we're putting things in ourselves that are on the surface great, but there's no infrastructure, or the infrastructure of the body is broken, it becomes valueless. So we find that we have to build the infrastructure. What is this infrastructure? Well, the infrastructure is very basic. It's vitamin B12, it's iron, it's the sex hormones, DHEA, in women, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, in men, testosterone and DHEA. These are the highways. Without highways, nothing's going to happen. So the first thing we do is analyze the highways and fix them. That's the first pillar, restoration. The next pillar is very, very important, is because we live in an environment that is toxic. In your room today, there are 200 toxins floating in the room you're sitting in. invisible intruders coming and creating havoc in your body. So as we've grown up from childhood, we've accumulated these toxins because the toxin load coming in is far higher than the body's capability to remove them. Your predecessor may have had 200 toxins coming in the wilderness. His liver and gut were able to deal with 400. It was reserved. Now we're getting 4 million coming in. The ability of the body to is still 400. So this waiting list is building up and creating this typhoon of inflammation. So without detoxing, nothing can happen. Imagine you inherited a family home, a mansion that was never empty for 500 years. You can't see the walls, you can't even get into the place. That is what our bodies are like. They're full of toxins. So any good work we're trying to achieve through all this matrix is going to have minimal outcome. So detoxification is the second pillar. And we detoxify the gut, which is where 70% of your immune system sits. And unfortunately, our guts are broken because our gut and brain talk to each other. So if you have a stressful thought, the gut feels it. So most bad guts are not just food, it's our thought. And of course, we're overthinking, most of us. And we approve this overthinking. So we detox the gut, then we detox the doormat to the body. So once the gut doesn't do its job properly or leaks, the liver has to pick up the pieces. And unfortunately, our livers are all toxic. You won't pick it up on conventional blood tests. That's the other thing. Blood tests have been built on what man-made can do. And they've created a whole medical model on that. This is stuff you can't even pick up, but you have to use your common sense. So detoxing the liver is the second thing. And finally, detoxing the fuel to inflammation. If you strangle the fuel line to inflammation, you'll strangle inflammation. And what is the fuel to inflammation? Sugar. You and I are carrying several hundred Mars bars in our body as stored sugar, and this is the fuel to inflammation. So by filtering all the rubbish out and removing the fuel, you're 90% there into longevity. So that is the second pillar, detox. And then the final pillar is the repair and the renew. Once you press Control or Delete on the organs, enabled your liver and gut to work properly, your defense systems, cleaned out the toxin inflammatory fuel, you can then repair. And what do we repair? Well, where do we live these days? We live in the brain dictated world, not a physical dictated world. When was the last time you were freezing? When was the last time you were so hot that you were going to be dehydrated? And when was the last time you did not have food on the table for more than 2 days? Impossible. Our predecessors had that all the time. So we have built up all this toxicity through brain thinking. We're no longer being physically challenged, so the brain is being challenged. So what we have to do is repair the brain. And how do we do that? Well, we have to repair the vagus nerve, your rest and digest nerve, because we're too busy with our sympathetic nerve wired, we've got to get the other guy working. So we fix your gut, having cleaned it, with probiotics and with peptides to reseal the wall so it doesn't leak. And we work very hard on your sleep, because sleep is the biggest healer. If you speak to Brian Johnson, of all the supplements he takes in the world, he was only talking about one thing, sleep. Sleep is the biggest healer there is. And if you can work your sleep out, you'll be able to detoxify, you'll be able to make hormones, you'll get everything. But of course, we are not great sleepers because our brains is overwired. We're wired and tired. That's our problem. So we then repair and renew the vagus nerve. Those are the 3 pillars. And then the fourth thing is, once you are fueled up correctly, your brain has bandwidth. Then you can do yoga, mindfulness, breath work, cryo, all these things that are out there, because you have the energy to deal with that and take it to a higher level. If you do it too early, with broken roads, depleted systems, nothing's going to happen. So, and then what these individuals then do is go to a higher level of thinking, a fourth dimension. They start working with their pineal gland. They start becoming more perceptive, intuitive. They start becoming more joyful. So the science of longevity is not about living longer. It's about finding the best version of yourself. And this best version, we coined it as medicine ad infinitum. Peter Attia talks about medicine 3.0. It's not good enough. Medicine ad infinitum is saying that the human form has not bottomed out yet. Each layer you take higher and higher and higher and higher. So that is the power of what we're able to do. And some are now talking about 200 years. I'm talking about 120. Some are talking 200. Some are talking even higher than that. We believe that there's enough stem cells to last thousands of years. These are baby cells waiting to become heart, brain, kidney. If we build your infrastructure clean up, maybe we can even take it further forward. But again, when you get that level of bandwidth, you eat less, you meditate more, you serve society without having to need for transactional arrangement. You basically stay away from materialism. What happens is the brain takes you there. It's not something you force on yourself. So you'll find that yogis, they live simple lives, very focused and dedicated lives, because they've got this bandwidth. They've got this prana of energy, which we're all capable of, but you have to unleash it.
Well said that, Ash Kapoor. So I wanted to know, what are the repurposed drugs that promise long lifespan as on date?
So the drugs that promise lifespan, yes? So effectively, my view is the solution to longevity is not in a prescription. The solution to longevity is in nutrition. Illness is not a prescription deficiency, it's a nutritional depletion, where your infrastructure is not working, your gut's leaking, your liver's toxic. So if we're looking at lifespan and health span, we must not be looking at pharmaceutical products. Yes, you've got rapamycin and you've got metformin, but all of these things are mimicking something that you can do yourself. By fasting, you can achieve the same results as metformin and rapamycin. So what we're saying is we must empower ourselves to own this, not delegate it to an expert with drugs. This is where it'll become sustainable. It will also democratize longevity. And what I mean is that should be available to every human being on earth. So we must try and avoid using pharmaceutical solutions and dig deep and find nutraceutical ones. Let me give you an example. The Indian boy in the village, he eats from the soil, which is full of minerals. He drinks from a lake, which has got all the sort of salts that are required. He has a community that look after him. He goes to bed with sunset and rises with sunrise. He's already practicing longevity.
Excellent. So we have to change our lifestyle rather than depending on pharmaceuticals.
100%. And once we do this, we can solve the health and social care problem, where chronic disease is not being managed very well. It's taking up huge amounts of budgets from governments. We're achieving nothing. And so the solution here is you have to redefine success. And the current systems have been built for a defined outcome, i.e. feeding pharma. And the food industry is also responsible for many problems. So you have to redefine the systems to get a different outcome. Because we know this is not working. There's more mental illness, there's more depression, there's more obesity, there's more chronic disease, and all we do is keep putting plasters on this. More and more plasters.
Yes. Yeah, we keep putting plasters on it. Excellent. So the thing is, Rash Kapoor, I wanted to know how to avoid these visible signs of aging, like losing hair, wrinkles, gray hair everywhere. So diminishing of muscles. So how to avoid this kind of situation?
Very, very easy. We fix from the inside, and the outside will look after itself. When you lose hair, it's a signal that your body's distressed. When you get wrinkles or dry skin, your skin is your gut turned inside out. So this repair, detox, and renew is the solution to even the aesthetic side of things. Once you're an 80-year-old and you feel 40, you want to look like a 40-year-old. So what we do in longevity medicine, we use bioregenerative aesthetics. So we don't use Botox or fillers. We use things that will stimulate stem cell production. So we use exosomes that can stimulate cells. We use polynucleotides. We use carboxytherapy. We use platelet-rich plasma. These are ways of nudging your body to still continue to look after itself. So we also regenerate hair on that same basis. So again, once you optimize inside, 50% gets better anyway. And then we work on the other 50%. So for me, going back to muscle mass, the commonest source of muscle mass loss is testosterone depletion. Testosterone is a natural hormone made in men. But if you are stressed, the body will steal your testosterone via DHA, steal the DHA that makes testosterone to feed the adrenal gland. So you can become testosterone depleted with stress. Then you get agitated, grumpy, irritable, and you lose muscle mass. So maintaining testosterone, maintaining hormones is absolutely paramount in longevity. Not about just end of age. It can be at any age. Restoration hormones, they are the conductors to the orchestra or the symphony. If you do not have a conductor, the symphony goes everywhere. Hormones dictate how your genes work. So, when people talk about genes and that's my destiny, I'm going to get dementia, nonsense. It's not true. These genes can be switched on and switched off if you create a good environment around them. And part of that is hormones, part of that is clean living, part of that's detoxifying. It's called epigenetics, the environment around your gene. And we can change that environment. It's in our hands to change that environment. And we change it for our children too, because epigenetics can run down 2, 3, 4 lineages. So it's all within our capability. Your genes are not your destiny. And that is why it's important that we live like this. And again, when you do this, you look at every part, every illness, not just one. Psychological, neurological, immunological, and endocrinological.
Excellent. So why do you think the people who are living in blue zones are living more? What is their lifespan different? Why it is different? What is the lifestyle they're having?
Okay. Very important to realize it's multifactorial. So let's start from the beginning. They are breathing in clean air. You and I are breathing in aluminium, lead, mercury, silver. We're breathing in, metropoles are full of toxins in the air. They're breathing clean air. Oxygen is the elixir of life. So first of all, they're breathing quality air. Number two, they eat fresh. They don't eat microwave food. They eat fresh from markets, fish that's been caught straight away from clean seas. You are what you eat. So the nutritional element is very good. So clean air, good nutrition. Thirdly, they live usually in communities. So they feel secure. They don't feel that someone's out to get them. They're not worrying about jobs. So they do not carry stress. And as I said, in this day and age, stress is the biggest predator to your well-being. And that is very important. So these guys can eat more fat, they can eat more sugar, but because they're not stressed, they're not making sugar. So not being stressed is very powerful. They sleep well. They have very good sleep cycles. They have circadian rhythm, so they heal very nicely. And they live in the present. Very important. They're not worried about tomorrow or yesterday. Tomorrow hasn't happened, and yesterday is deleted. So what's the point? We live most of our time based on our past experiences and what we worry about in the future. Mortgages, retirement, school fees, etc. So any blue zone country, they have good quality air, good quality food, good quality sleep, and a community where they feel that they're secure. Anyone who lives in a community will have security. And not having security, or the other thing is social isolation or loneliness, is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's very powerful. And with AI and internet and online, we're now detaching. We're detaching from communities, and we all release energies that we thrive on. So communities is going to be a very powerful element of the future.
So we know that recently Singapore is added to this blue zone kind of city. So what factors do you think this addition has reason for?
So again, I think Singapore is one of these countries that is interesting in the sense that it is an accumulation of many people from around the world, correct? It's just so there are many variables to this, but I feel that as a city, the general consensus is that you feel secure, you feel content, there's positiveness in the environment, everyone has got good energy. There's young energy, lots of young, aspiring people. And I think we have to blend the old with the young. The old will bring experience, the young will bring energy. Most other countries, they divide. The old go into care homes, the young stay where they are, the middle get isolated. So I think Singapore allows that sort of environment to be created. There's structure, there's purpose, there's weather, and there's, again, quality of food, but also it has already, people go to Singapore where they are energetic anyway. People who migrate like this bring a new energy. Immigration all over the world brought in good energy. When people moved from one country to another, they were like sugar coming into the water of that country. They sweetened it. And I think Singapore depicts that environment where you forget to see which country you're from, where you've arisen. You see yourself as part of a bigger society. And I think country alienation is going to become as big as individual alienation in the future. So unless we open up, we're going to it's going to have sort of negative effects on longevity.
Yeah. So my wish is that if we can make every house has blue zone, so I think we can live happily and healthily.
We
So
absolutely can. And of course, you can biohack. You can turn off your internet at night. You can use red light in the evening to avoid the blue light coming. You can put filters in your house so the oxygen stays clear. And I imagine some of this technology you're finding in some of the new residents in Singapore also.
yes. So Dr. Ash, we have hypertension, we have diabetes, we have heart attacks, we have cancer. So all these are creating lot of problem across the globe. So how do you think this will intersect with longevity?
So if we've agreed that every disease is inflammation, right? And the ones you've described are the extreme elements of inflammation. If we were teaching our children not to say, I've got a headache, if they were saying, my inflammation is showing in my headache, my inflammation is showing that I'm irritable, my inflammation is showing I can't sleep, we change the narrative and start mitigating inflammation at that age, then this extreme inflammation that comes over later will not happen. So the intersection is longevity is the solution to every one of those chronic diseases you've described.
Excellent. That is right. So you already explained about genetic factor, but still I have a doubt. Can we come out of this genetic factor, because we know that so many diseases are coming because of inheritance? So
Yes.
can we totally normalize this genetic factor?
Yeah. So this is very important. We have assumed everything is genetic. Okay. You've also got to remember there is something called familial. Now, if you've grown up in an environment and your children are in that environment, they've watched you as parents growing up, they become a mini you. Is that genetics or is that nurture? Do you see? That's the first thing. The second thing is the food they may eat is the same as you. The car they drive is the same as you. So a lot of the factors that you're living in, you've transposed onto the children. That's not genetic. That's epigenetic. So we have to differentiate genetic code with epigenetics. And we now know that even if your genetic code is faulty, i.e. you have a predisposition to dementia or cholesterol or heart disease, ultimately the lifestyle factors can modify that. So if you clean the area around your gene, what we call epigenetics, you can switch off those bad genes. They don't have to come. So your genes are not your destiny, absolutely. And we have to be very careful that we do a lot of genetic testing and we put a seed in the person's brain saying, I'm going to be demented, I'm going to have my heart attack. And you know what? You'll manifest it. Because once this guy listens, it tells the body this. Make sense? Whereas when we talk about epigenetics, it's a story of hope. By changing your life, by removing these factors, you can influence not only your own lifestyle, your own position, your children's position. Very different message. So the answer is, it's not inevitable. Absolutely not. If you look at breast cancer, there's a gene for breast cancer. But if you look at the profile of individuals who get breast cancer, 2 years before, they are super stressed. And that stress has stolen their hormones, depleted their gut, created havoc with their adrenal gland, and then cancer. If you control those things, the cancer will not come.
So finally, I wanted to know, what are the 3 lifestyle changes do you prescribe so that we can live long and live happily with
Okay.
no health problems?
So 3 silver bullets, the 3 things you can do. 1, sleep. Make sure you sleep in circadian rhythm. What that means is your natural melatonin should come on board at 9 p.m. Your cortisol should drop by 9 p.m. That is your natural state. So aim to go to sleep between 9 and 10 maximum, number 1. Number 2, wake up with sunrise. Open your eyes, open your thing, and let the sun come and hit you. So then your natural hormones wake up. So sleep, how you go to bed and how you wake up. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to control your sympathetic nervous system, the wired brain. And so how do you control that? Well, you make sure that you, in your life, many things are going to come in that are going to stress you. Offloading this. So things like breath work, walking barefoot on soil or grass is a way of earthing, removing these stressors from you. This is super important because stress is now the biggest number one thing. And the third biohack, which very few people pay attention to, and they should, is vitamin D. Vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. It's one of the most powerful hormones in the world. And a lot of the reference ranges are mistakenly low because they've only looked at bone protection, not the other 100 receptors that vitamin D looks after. People who had good vitamin D levels did not suffer from COVID. And we are all depleted because the reference ranges are wrong and we're not taking enough of it. So to me, those, if you only had three things to take away, those would be the three.
Awesome, Dr. Ash Kapoor. It was really knowledgeful session for us. We came to know so many important parameters that will change our lifestyle in a great manner. Thank you so much for explaining us each and every detail in a very clear and concise manner. I'm very much thankful to you for giving your precious time. I know how much you are busy. Even then, you spared your valuable time. Thank you so much, Dr. Ash Kapoor.
It's a pleasure. I wish you all well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.